Hello, folks. Welcome to another Hill and Ponton VA Q&A Live. Matt Hill, your host here. Fortunately, Carol Ponton is still out of town. Again, I'll do my best to give you both my perspective and when I know she would vehemently disagree with me, give you hers as well. Because as y'all know, when it comes to this stuff, there's typically multiple ways to get to where you need to be. So before I go any further, I just want to say happy 4th to everybody. I hope you guys all have a safe and wonderful 4th. And again, I will be appreciating you guys. You'll be on my heart and my mind, just thinking about all the wonderful men and women that have served our country and these great get-togethers we have where we help each other. All right, Nate just did a quick appearance there. That was kind of fun. Let's go ahead and get started. Alan, can your sleep apnea higher level review be denied based on a statement that the severity of the aggravation wasn't measured before filing your claim for secondary connection? I don't know how to determine how to measure how much my sleep apnea is affected by my service-connected disability. Okay. So secondary and aggravation are two different things. If it's secondary, that means it's secondary to a service-connected condition, meaning that condition actually caused the sleep apnea. It sounds like what you're saying, though, is your sleep apnea pre-existed the service-connected disability. So let's just do a timeline there. Let's say in 2020, you got diagnosed with this is actually kind of interesting. Let's say in 2020, you got diagnosed with sleep apnea, and then not service-connected. 2022, you get service-connected for a back condition. If that back condition manifest or was diagnosed like this after after you already had the sleep apnea, then we're talking about aggravation. Okay, so we need a baseline of what was going on here with the sleep apnea. How did it manifest? How did it treat it? Okay, you need to look at the diagnostic codes, and Nate will throw those up for sleep apnea and see where on that level of significance you were. So an easy case for you would be, let's say you were 10%, you were diagnosed with it, but it wasn't affecting you. You get diagnosed, get service connected for the back disability. And then after that, your sleep apnea deteriorates and you're required to get a CPAP, BiPAP, whatever. At that point, your rating would, the pre-existing rating would be 10%. The post-back service-connected disability, it would be 50%. You would get the difference, okay? So if you had 10% pre, 50 post, then you get 40, the difference there. Something I want you to think about, though, sleep apnea is caused by sinus problems. It's caused by PTSD. It's caused by back problems. I don't really care if your diagnosis, so let's say your sleep apnea is here, okay, and you were diagnosed or you're service connected 2 years after that for the underlying disability, the back, the PTSD, whatever. If you were having symptoms of that before the sleep apnea, then I think we need to argue this is straight secondary service connection. And even though you weren't diagnosed with the back, PTSD, sinuses, whatever, if you were suffering from that before the sleep apnea was diagnosed, my argument would be that this is a secondary service connection, not an aggravation, because secondary, you get the full, let's say you need CPAP now, you get that full 50. And I think secondary, the VA is awful when it comes to sleep apnea. But in general, I find that secondary service connection is easier, or at least more straightforward than aggravation. I know I threw a lot at you there. Mull it over, come back to us, let's talk about it some more. But it's almost like you got to write out the timeline. When were you diagnosed with X? When did the symptoms of Y start? And go from there. Good luck to you. Thomas, good to see you. Had a C&P examiner say my periodic limb movement disorder was an erroneous diagnosis with no justification. How should I fight this? I filed a higher level review, just waiting for my conference. I mean, first of all, Thomas, you're zeroing in on what's important, not giving a justification. That to me is a failure or inadequate exam, which is a failure of duty to assist to get you an adequate exam. Okay, so you could argue that right off the bat, say. And then if you have medical records in the file, I would just put those forward to the higher level reviewer and say, this is what my doctor not only says, but has been treating me for. This dude, his contract, I always like to throw it like that, because if you're not blaming the VA directly, they can kind of get behind you, these reviewers. You can say, this dude in the contract he rushed through this exam and all of a sudden he's coming up with something else on the diagnosis. He doesn't tell me why, he doesn't put it in there. I want a new exam, and I'd want a new exam with somebody else. I'd say that to the higher level reviewer, be like, this guy wasted my time. He's wasting your time because he's not doing what he should do, and go from there. But on the face of it, this is a duty to assist error. So that's what you're arguing. And again, you zeroed in on the fact that there was no justification. All right. Sherry, good afternoon, and thank you so much for all you do. I had a bad mental health C&P exam last week. My VSO showed it to me. Should I submit anything now to let them know, or just wait for the decision? Happy Fourth. Happy Fourth to you. Yes, I like this, Sherry. You're on top of this. I like being proactive. I want you to look at that exam. I want you to write a, call letter 4138, basically a statement by you, talking about what he said, what he didn't say, what you told him, what he recorded you said, and what he didn't record. Okay. And then, I would argue this again is a duty to assist error. What I like about you doing this here is that hopefully it's caught before there's a decision and they send you to another exam now, versus you having to wait for the decision, go to higher level review, ask for a new exam there. We're hopefully shaving 6 months off this process. Okay. So again, I'm excited because what I see here is a proactive veteran invested in her claim. So yes, write down what was said, what was not said. What I see all the time is my vets go in, they're prepared. They say, this happened, this is how I feel. These are symptoms I can't get rid of. And then you see the doctors not note any of that. And so you just need to lay all that out there and be like, this is what happened versus what he said, and it's inadequate. Great thought. I love the proactivity. Okay, Timothy, good to see you. Plan on filing a claim for VA aid and attendance based on my PTSD with insomnia, rated 100%, and other service-connected conditions. I was granted SMC-M on a higher level review for loss of use of both feet in December 24. Sorry, I got something in my eye. What is the correct form I should use to file aid and attendance on? I was told aid and attendance is considered a claim for increase. I must use a 526, but if granted, the effective date will be the date on the 2680. I was wondering, why can't I file an 0995 even though it's a favorable decision to preserve my effective date? The claim is still alive until December 25. Oh, I still have a BVA case docketed at the BVA as well, based on Barry for half-step increase since February 25. I was told that since the claims are completely different, it shouldn't be an issue. This is interesting, Timothy. All right, let's go back. I think it's the second one that I wanted to see. Okay, so Timothy, in our office, what we talk about is substance over form. And what I mean by that is we want to get the benefits for our vets as quickly as possible. Most of the time we're waiting on the VA, but they do stupid things like this. They ask, first of all, kudos to you. You understand this better than they do. And that, yes, this is basically an appeal, or supplemental claim, whatever, in that they didn't give you the correct rating. Okay. For them to say you have to submit it all again, you granted the form, you submit that ANA form you have there, okay? And then if they're saying, if you submitted an 0995 and they rejected it and say, no, we want a 526, send in the 526. Are they wrong? Yes. But at the end of the day, we want to get your benefits timely, okay? They screw this up so often, and it's so frustrating for us. They can't even read their own damn regulations. But at the end of the day, we want to get you these benefits and get them timely. So I would submit the 0995, and then if they reject that, then submit the 526 with the ANA form. Now let's talk about this because this is pretty interesting here. Your SMC-M, go back to the first one. What do we have? Oh, we're asking for this off of PTSD. Your SMC-M for loss of use. If you get the aid and attendance for the PTSD, which is a great one because people don't realize how PTSD can give you brain fog, make you forgetful, make it to where you're so agitated and have such severe symptoms that leaving the house is frankly a hazard to you and others. So I like this. I like getting the aid and attendance for that because that should pop you up. So M and then aid and attendance for a different disability gets you to O, but the fact that you have aid and attendance, that gets you immediately to R1. So this is a big increase. I like this, and I like the fact that you understand It should go back to 24 December. I bet you money that they screw up the effective date once they actually give you the benefits you deserve. But again, you've done your research, you understand this, hold them to it. This is big money. They're going to try every way they can to get themselves out of it. And 1 of 5, husband's claim for USMC Camp Lejeune prostate cancer had private DBQ, nexus, his personal and my witness statement, and negative genetic test results. Okay, first of all, awesome. That's great evidence. Boom. Okay, submitted 5/19/25, QTC scheduled in-person exam. Drove 55 miles to find out nurse practitioners on vacation. Exam done same day over phone. VA received copy 6/9. Also had to drive 55 miles the next day for blood draw. Then QTC scheduled ACE exam. Examiner called, did exam 6/13 in AM. VA received the exam same day 6/13. Denied 6/25. VA medical opinion found no link. Private nexus, his personal statement, first C&P exam not listed as evidence. Can see files received with claim 5/19/25 on VA portal. So I like this, high-level review with informal conference, got applicable 38 CFR M21(1) in case law memorialized, going to ask DRO if there's enough evidence to decide without duty to assist. Error back to the RO. Any advice, thoughts? Okay, my thoughts are, come work with us. This is awesome. You did a hell of a job here setting the claim up from the beginning and following through. If you've already sent stuff in for the high-level review, fine. I avoid citing case law from the Veterans Court or the Federal Circuit when I'm working with laymen, non-attorneys at the RO. It seems to freak them out. I like to do what you were doing as far as I go to the M21 first and see if there's something I can give them there because they understand that. That's frankly their Bible. I think you got this set up well. Informal conference, this is going to be a different person than the idiot who made this first decision. Sorry if you're any VA employees on here, but this is pretty idiotic. This should have been presumptively service connected, so I don't know what in the world they're doing here. So you need to go in realizing it's not this person's fault and you want to work with this person. And your job is to make it easy to help them help you. Okay, so you go in, you say, hey, look, seems like a pretty fat error here. They didn't even review, not only did they not review, they didn't even list the evidence that I sent in. I think this is a presumptive issue. You have the diagnosis from our private doctor and the DBQ, which hopefully talks about the significance and severity. And you say, hey, look, my husband's been through a lot. This has been really hard on him. You have everything you need here to grant this case. I'd ask that you not send this back for duty to assist because on one hand, you have the VA's inadequate exam, didn't look at all the evidence. And then on the other hand, you have a thorough opinion from his doctor. One and one don't equal 2 here. Okay, you've got all you need. Can you please grant this? And it's hard dealing with the VA, but you need to go in with good faith that this person's going to do the right thing. So that's what I'd advise. But my overall comment is, wow, you nailed this. This is really impressive. Thanks for sharing. And again, folks, I hope other folks look at this. Like the way she and her husband set this up. Great strategy from the point. From the beginning, they did all their due diligence. And one thing I would say, and for others, hopefully you don't have to go through this again. What she did is she gathered all the evidence before submitting it. If you're going to do that, make sure you file an intent to file first. So that gives you a year to go out and get all the evidence you need, and you get the backdated effective date that you're entitled to. Okay, but kudos to you. Connie, good to see you. 1 of 5. TDIU being appealed to VBA. I think that's VBA, not BVA, with supplemental evidence. Do you recommend 21-4138 to send with 10182 to support reasons for appeal, or add addendum pages to the appeal form with evidence? What options does BVA have? Can they actually recommend approval with remand to RO, stipulating remand to Director of Compensation? Or can they approve 100% increase rating with new private medical evidence? All right, Connie, we got a lot going on here. Or do they just remand without opinion and await new rating decision? Let's go back to the first part. So what I'm wondering is, with your TDIU claim, are we talking, so TDIU is 38 CFR 4.16 is the reg. There's 4.16A, which is where if you have 60% for one rating, 70% for combined ratings, you got to have a 40% under there. Just read the reg as far as like all the things that add up to 60 or add up to 70. If you have that, then you qualify under subsection A. Subsection A allows both the regional office and the BVA to grant upon first review. If your rating is below 70 combined or below 60 for one disability, then we are talking about 4.16 subsection B, which means the case has to go to the director of compensation at the central office. Okay, I almost uniformly see the VA ROs screw this up, and the reason I think there is because it's more paperwork for them to send it to central office. And so they just deny it and get it off their plate. If it goes to the board, like it is here, the BVA cannot grant you those benefits upon first review. They have to refer it to the central office. If central office denies you, you can reappeal to the board. And at that point, the board can grant. All right, so let's go to the next part. You know, so my thought is you put the appeal in first, just get that in there. And if you're asking for supplemental evidence, then you have a 90-day window. And then I would gather the evidence for that window at that point. But I want that appeal in as fast as possible just to get the clock back on the VA at this point, the BVA, and that you're in line to get your case processed. So I would file that first and then really kind of take your time with developing the evidence and just get it in before the 90-day window. Okay, I think there's a couple other questions. Okay, we talked about the options they have. Can they actually recommend approval? Okay, I think we talked about that. 4, can they approve 100%? Yeah, I mean, if you have a path to get to 100%, that's what we want to do. Okay, because that's a faster turnaround. The board does have the ability both to review that and grant that on first review. So if you have the evidence to prove that, let's do that, okay? Because if you're under 60% for one or 70% for 2 or 3, it's going to take a lot longer going through central office. I tell my vets when I have a central office IU case, we're looking at 5 to 7 years. If you don't have to wait 5 to 7 years because you get 100% under whatever the code is for your rating, let's do that. All right, last part. They can always remand. If you send in good new evidence, they can say, oh, this is good new evidence, but we have this RO evidence. They can always remand, which to me is very frustrating because it's, it's just kind of a do-over. But yes, that is always an option for them. Great questions coming. Roger, thanks for all that you do. We love what we do. Recently awarded SMCK for ED loss of limb, and now was told it was an error as I didn't have it in service years. Oh my God. I have 30 for heart, 100% for prostate cancer. The ED is caused by meds for heart caused by AO. I have a letter from VA saying to apply for ED. Now what should I do? Okay, so we're service connected with heart. If you look on your side effects for the medicine, like you should have gotten a sheet of paper and you can ask your pharmacist for this. Frankly, you can chat GPT it. And one of the side effects listed for the medication is ED. I would submit that and be like, look, you've service connected me for my heart. ED is a common secondary problem due to heart. And oh, by the way, my medicines cause this. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth, but so it's just kind of frustrating. My medicines cause this. Here's the paperwork from the pharmacist that says this medicine causes ED. Submit that. This is, I'm going to have to go on a pedestal here. This frustrates me. This is a worthless denial or reduction the VA is doing here that is clogging up the system for you and for other people. And it just frustrates me beyond so many things because there are so many people who need their darn claims reviewed, and then they're spending time doing something that is absolutely non-substantive and without basis. So sorry you're going through this, but yeah, I think you should have a relatively straightforward evidentiary claim here. Hollywood Sasquatch. As always, thank you to Helen Pond for your time to teach us. Recently had higher level review informal conference call And the person on the other end said she would only review the claim I submitted, i.e. she would not consider any other means of service connection than the one I submitted. I have multiple potential ways for some of my conditions to be service connected and told her so. Is this grounds for supplemental or either failure to assist or for both of the other methods for service connection I didn't claim? Or should I go to the board? I need to know more about your claim. If we're talking something nuanced or something complex, I would go to the board. If you've done a runaround once or twice at the RO, I'd go to the board. Hollywood, you know, unfortunately, you understand the law better than the adjudicator here. The law states that the VA has to consider any and all avenues to get you the service-connected benefits you're entitled to. You know, if you had a claim for diabetes and then you said, oh, I've got a scar on my big toe, that's not related. That would have to be a new claim. But means or methods to get to service-connected disability, direct, secondary, presumptive, aggravation, they have to consider all that. That's part of their job. So unfortunately, you have a green adjudicator, which you should not have on a higher level review. And so you need to decide, is it worth it doing a supplemental, going back through this, or going to the board, you know, weighing one versus the other. Supplemental should be faster in theory, meaning like you get a supplemental claim decided within hopefully 3 months, and then back, if that's denied, back at a higher level review, hopefully with a different person within another 3 months. Board, if you have all the evidence in here, you should be able to get a decision within a year. If you go direct, well, hold on, I just had a thought. You're a Vietnam vet. If you were over 75, go directly to the board on a direct review and ask for an AOD, advance on the docket due to age. If you're over 75, you can get advance on the docket, and the board is rocketing those out. I'm seeing those within 3 to 6 months, which for a board opinion is crazy. So I would do that if you're that age. It's a lot, but hopefully one of those makes sense. Ryan, just received my decision letter. Got 70% for PTSD, combined 100% P&T. Now waiting on back pay. Congrats, Ryan. Happy for you, P&T. Hopefully that means you can just go live your life and not deal with the VA anymore. So that's a great 4th of July win right there. Lonnie, good to see you. Barry versus McDonald. Will the effective date be when you first established SMCL plus separate disabilities, or when you filed supplemental claim for higher level of supplemental? This is interesting. So if you already had, we're going to go under 2 scenarios because you didn't give me any dates. If you had SMCS and you had several different ratings, let's say 250s and 100, and they gave you a half a step or 1 step, and they didn't address the other ones, it doesn't matter if that was this year, last year, 10 years ago. Once you have those, this is automatic. There's nothing for them to review. This is an automatic grant that should happen. This is just like SMCS. If you have 100% for one disability, other disabilities combined for 60%, whenever that first happened, they have to go back to that date. Okay, so I've had cases where I've looked at and it should have gone back 30 years and they did, and then we filed, and you know, you get some uninformed individuals at the RO sometimes. You have to take it up to the board, but it goes back to the date you had all those ratings. Okay, so whatever date you first got SMCL is the date. Now, if you have this under appeal right now, the original SMCL, it makes it a lot easier. You know, we're not talking going back as far, obviously, but yeah, that should be it. This is an implicit claim that the VA has to review / grant on their own. You don't have to bring this up. Now, as we say here, bring it up because they're going to screw that up. But under 38 CFR 4.1, basically the beginning of the diagnostic codes, it states the VA has a duty to maximize your benefits. If you have those, everything that adds up to multiple steps, they have to maximize. And it doesn't matter if they screwed it up this year or 10 years ago. They got to go back to when they first screwed it up. Great question. Big Tima 20. Recently had a rating of 90%, completed supplemental claim, and added documentation for migraine showing that I've not worked since July 23, FMLA form and Social Security statement. I submitted a buddy statement and migraine buddy details showing attacks 4 per month. Originally, I was rated 0% for migraines, but that decision has adjusted to 30% during my high-level review. Dated September 23, supplemental claim was completed. I was reduced to 0 based on wording of C&P Exam 2022. New C&P Exam was not mentioned, and my evidence was not reviewed or listed in the reason for decision. I'm not sure how the VA can go back to a rating decision prior to the adjustment during the higher level review and not add the higher level review documentation. Yeah, I don't like this. I would want to go board direct here, but what I'm afraid of is the board's going to say, we cannot review the evidence that the higher level review officer did not review. And this is a catch-22. You submitted that evidence and they didn't review it. It was not your fault. That's just incompetency on this higher level review officer. But they should have submitted it as part of the record. So I think the BVA should review this, but I just want you to know you run the chance of waiting for the direct review and them saying, hey, look, we can't do anything because the review officer didn't. If you have something, date stamp showing you submitted this before the decision was made by the review officer, I'd go to the board and say, look, this was part of the record. Not only was it part of the record, it was the dispositive part of the record. It was basically the deciding factor, and they didn't review it. And say to the board, you should grant these benefits based on this, which was part of the record before the decision was made. I do that because I don't like the runaround, frankly, you're getting at the RO. It just frustrates me to no end when I see stuff like this. So I would go to the board, but you need to weigh will you get a remand based on that nonsense, or, are they going to make the proper decision? Make a doodle. Part 1, hi, 100% P&T. BVA granted 2021 60% for rheumatoid arthritis in hands back to 2009. I requested SMC M in 2022, appealed, and BVA granted it May 25, but no effective date. Should it go back to 2009? Thanks. Thanks for all you do. Channels helped me win. Well, that's great. I'm glad we helped you win because this is a big claim. So BVA grants back to 2009. That means your claim is open back to 2009. If there's evidence in there showing loss of use of hands back to 2009, great. If there's not, and you had the same symptoms, frankly, loss of use back to 2009, develop that evidence, okay? Get a statement in there about you and what you were able to do back in 2009. Get a statement in there from your spouse, other loved ones, people who saw you. Frankly, the more evidence like this we can get, the better. If you have a doctor who's continually treating you back then and can say, yeah, when he came to me, he had these problems. He still has these problems. I would get that in there too. So yes, you have an opportunity to go back to 2009, and this is big money. Okay, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you need to make sure that you do your diligence and get these good statements. Okay, because this is they're not going to give this to you. All right, they're going to want to keep your money here. But if you have a claim and you were having the problems with your hands, you served our country, you are entitled to these benefits. Don't let them steal them from you. Jim, had appeal sent to the board January 24. Any idea how long? 100% since then, withdraw or let it play out? Thanks for all you do for vets. Okay, Jim, I don't know what kind of appeal you sent. That matters drastically. If it was a direct review, they should, so January 24, they should be getting you that decision timely soon. If it was an evidentiary review, I'm seeing anywhere from a 1.5 to 3 years on that. Okay. If you ask for a hearing, this is going to be something your grandchildren address because we're seeing 5 to 7 years. I haven't seen non-advance on the docket hearing requests board decisions out in the new AMA. So we're talking back to 2019, 2020. So, that's going to be a long time, unfortunately. I don't know what you're appealing for. I don't know if the effective date for what you're appealing for goes back to before you had 100%. Those would be benefits you'd have on the table. If you already have it in there, I'm not as concerned about this being something where they try to reduce you because it was already a claim that was filed. So you just need to figure out, what benefits you could get from it. If it goes back before the 100%, then you probably would get benefits. So that's what I'd be considering. But if it's a hearing request, and Carol and I agree on this, we both hate hearing requests because they just put those in some dark corner of a basement somewhere and just don't even look at them. Not too sure what to put. Good day. Do you have an estimate on the length of time of BVA for evidence appeals? Thank you, and have a great 4th. Yeah, it's just what I said there. I'm seeing anywhere from 1.5 years to 3 years on those. Kent, does signing a VA 5103 response form regarding having no more evidence to support a claim negate your ability to file a future decision appeal? You can't negate that. That is your right, and yeah, it does not. Margarita, any word on Fort McClellan documentary? Thank you. Why, yes, we do. Nate has been working his tail off on this. He is a perfectionist, put together an amazing documentary. He is going to debut it on July 4th, I think at 12 o'clock or 12:30 Eastern Standard Time. Nate, if there is a link that they can go to watch that, then if you put that up. Again, kudos to him for really digging in on this. He found some great information, has some good interviews. I'm excited about how both this can inform all of our vets on benefits they could be entitled to due to the exposure at Fort McClellan. But then 2, I'm excited about the awareness this will raise. This is something that boggles my mind a bit, in that, we had this great toxic exposure bill that came out 2 years ago that was overdue, but very wide ranging as far as all the toxins that people are exposed to. And somehow they didn't put Fort McClellan in. There were so many vets, unfortunately, who went through there and they were exposed. And it's a nuanced, kind of complicated issue, in that it's not so much exposure to chemical weapons, but frankly, just flat out exposure to Agent Orange there. So this documentary, I hope, not only helps veterans, but then maybe some lawmakers see this and realize that these are some folks who are in desperate need of a presumptive service connection to get the benefits they deserve. Jack, retired 12 years ago due to medical reasons not associated with VA claim. 4 years ago, I filed VA through the process. I'm now 80%. Okay. Not sure what's going on here, but I'm going to take a swing at this and say that if that 80% disability or disabilities also causes you not to be able to work, you can apply for unemployability. Okay. There's, it's not mutually exclusive. It's not like my back caused me not to be able to work, and then all these other disabilities, PTSD, diabetes, other things that could be service connected, those could still cause you not to work as well. So you can have multiple reasons for which you're not working. And if that's what you're going for, then you need to file that. Hair Metal Revolution. Love the name. That's great. I got my rating back last Thursday. My mental health stayed at 50, even after my C&P said she's writing my DBQ for an increase, but VA kept it the same. I feel betrayed by the system. I'm sorry you feel betrayed. That happens a lot. The C&P examiners sometimes don't realize what they're putting or realize what needs to be stated there. My thought on this is get a copy of the C&P exam, and then get a copy of the diagnostic codes. Nate put a link to those hopefully earlier, and compare them, and then overlay that with what your actual symptoms are. If the C&P examiner did not hit your symptoms, and you see your symptoms on that diagnostic code for a higher rating, 70% rating, then you need to appeal. Now, if your symptoms are not on like a 4138 that's already in the record, then I would do a supplemental claim. And supplemental claim would be with a 4138, basically, a letter to the VA saying, here's my symptoms. None of this was mentioned in the C&P exam, and these symptoms equate to a 70% because on the 70% rating it says X and I meet X. So I'm sorry you feel betrayed. This is frustrating. See this a lot, and frankly, they win when you give up. So channel this frustration, channel this anger to focus on getting the benefits you need. Sounds to me like you've already done research and you understand that where you should be. Now it's making sure the VA understands that and then giving you those benefits. David, C&P coming up for TDIU based on sensory motor diabetic polyneuropathy, upper and lower bilateral. but VA threw in hypertension. How do they think? Not sure. You know, if hypertension is already service connected, that's fine. I don't care about that. If it's not service connected and they're trying to look for that, then that's a little frustrating because it does throw a kink in it. But if it's service connected, no big problem. What I want to know on here, though, and what I want you to be thinking about, diabetic polyneuropathy, upper and lower. Do you have any problems upper, you know, with your hands being able to manipulate a pen? You know, can you use a pen the correct way, or do you have to use it like this? Can you button buttons the way you used to button, or is that impossible, or is it taking 30 minutes? Can you use a fork the way a fork's meant to be used, or do you have to make modifications? If you have to make modifications, we're looking at loss of use of hands. And we had another viewer who wrote in earlier. That's SMC-M. Okay, that's, you know, you get 100%, or IU, you're looking at, I can't ever get this right. I think it's like $3,800 now. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And at SMC-M, you're looking at somewhere in the 7,000s. Okay, same thing with the lower bilateral. You'd be SMC-L if you had loss of use of legs. But again, can you walk with a steady gait? Can you balance yourself? Can you pulse off your feet in a normal way, where you don't need a walker, a wheelchair, something like that? So that's not what you asked, but when I see that diagnosis, my thought immediately goes to, hey, I'm not settling for IU. I want to see the max SMC I can get here. Remy 86, good to see you. Been a while. Hello, recently been granted 10% for GERD. I have a claim since 2020. They rated me under the old and new rating schedule, but the old schedule would have given me 30%. Should I do a high-low review? So I'm hoping that this means that you had the old rating through, being that I had continually pursued from then until my grant 2 weeks ago. This is a murky area. Like, the law is not settled on this, whether you should have been rated continuously under the old diagnostic code, or since they got this case basically when there was a new diagnostic code issued, that they rate you under both of them. I think it's the latter. I think they're supposed to rate you under the old and the new. That being said, what do you got to lose? I mean, they gave you a lower rating. I'd appeal it. I mean, again, this is, to me, is not settled law. So I'd appeal it and say, look, you rated me in this old one. Symptoms haven't changed. I think you owe me the higher rating of the two. See what it says, and then get back to us and let us know what they say. Because I've seen this mostly fall out the other way, that they're supposed to rate you under both, whatever. But I think you should argue this and say, look, I'm entitled to higher benefits here. See what happens. Grace, good to see you. C&P exam is in 2 weeks. Can I submit more buddy and lay statements prior to the exam? Do you think they'll have it before the exam? Should I ask them if they reviewed right before the exam begins? Great question, Grace. Here's what I do in a situation like this. If I have specific evidence I want the C&P examiner to review, I am not counting on the VA to put that before them. I'm counting on the VA to screw that up. Okay. So in your case, I'm doing two things. I'm submitting these records to the VA, so that's part of your record. Anything you hand in or have the C&P examiner review will not be part of your record. Okay, that will not make it to the C file. So I'm both submitting those records and bringing them in and say, hey, doc, I know they give you access to my file, but these are really important on my C&P exam, be it either for the service connection aspect or the rating aspect. Okay, and just say, I know you're busy, but I really would like you to review these so that you have a full picture. Okay, so I would do that. I would do both. But again, this is a really good question. Just make sure you submit it to the VA and take it in with you. Alpha Tango, I have a sincere question. I'm 100% total and permanent for PTSD, but they will not pay me my back pay when I actually ended up in the hospital in 2009. They only took it back 2013. What do I do? Is it possible to get what they still owe me? There was no reason to short my effective date. In reality, my effective date was October 4. Okay. It's done by Atlanta, which is still the worst regional office. I should I mention I was able to rate 100% on scheduler rating on the basis of employability. Okay. The rater at my appeal hearing chose what she called a scheduler rating. Okay. So, oh man, what is that reg? I think it's 38 CFR 3.157. It's a reg that the VA got rid of back in 2014 because frankly it was so it was generous for vets. I say that kind of tongue in cheek because basically it made the VA read their own records. If your case was if your hospitalization or going to the hospital was through the VA system, under that regulation, that is an informal claim for an increase. Okay, so they should have, as of 09, done that. Now, if you went to a private hospital and somehow they got record of that, like that ended up in your VA records, again, that is notice of an informal claim. If you went to a private hospital and it did not end up into your records until over a year after that, or to 2014, then unfortunately, I don't think you have a claim back to 09. But again, if this was a claim, if this was a stay at a VA hospital, you definitely go back to 09. This is a great regulation. I don't see it that much anymore, but if you're already service connected for disability, which it sounds like you were back to 04, and something happens, an aggravation, an increase that is demonstrated by hospitalization, that triggers a claim for increase if it's at the VA system. And that's 38 CFR 3.157. You will not find that if you go to the Federal Regulations Code. You just need to Google that or put it in ChatGPT because the reg is no longer there because they got rid of it because it was such a great reg for vets. Hey, Vets Life, good to see you. VA sent a letter with all my info to a different vet. Is there anything I can do? They're just giving me 1 year monitoring my credit. I don't know that there's any more you can do with that. I mean, that's frustrating. It's just like more aggravation and frankly anxiety than already is with working with the VA. I had not heard of more than that. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's it's just another level of incompetence they have. I don't think there is a way to get more than a year, but if something happens, if somebody does steal your identity, then you need to report back to the VA and they need to be there on the hook for that. Can I ask my VA doctor to write Amnio? Yes. To claim secondary lower back condition from my service-connected degenerative arthritis and how to explain it to them to write it up. Thanks. Degenerative arthritis. Okay. This is something where you got to talk it out with your doc and just say, okay, doc, I'm service connected for the arthritis. Do you think that has caused my lower back condition, aggravates my lower back condition, is a factor in me developing the lower back condition? If it's a factor in developing it or directly causes it, that's a secondary claim. If it's an aggravator, that just means you got a claim for aggravation. I'd ask them that and say, hey, thank you for always being a great doc. Could you go ahead? Could you write just a simple statement on this? And basically, the simple statement is that's degenerative arthritis caused the lower back condition because of what? And when it comes to because of what, I want just 2 sentences of rationale from the doctor on that. So that's what I ask. Beware, if the doctor says, no, I can't do that, which is a lie, or says, no, I don't feel comfortable with that, do not push them. Okay. We've had really bad experiences in the past where basically we tell the doctor that they're obligated to, which frankly, I guess you can't argue they're obligated to, but you can say that the VA encourages them to do this. But if they say no, and you're pushing them, what you might get is a negative opinion that's in your record. And that is bad because that's your treating doc and that's going to be hard to overcome. So just, feel it out when you go talk to them. Chris A, good to see you. Much last week with SMC L2 equals R1, I went back and looked at my claim from 14 years ago. It was decided November 12 and December 12. VA received Social Security records. VA never considered that. So the claim is open, right? I have appointments with my private doc for DBQs needed to assist with cooking when I have a migraine and I leave the stove on with PTSD. Is that strong enough claim? VA is considering me for extra schedule for migraines. Do I need 100% rating? No, you don't need 100% rating. Thank you so much. Thank you for that's the favorite question of the week. This one's gonna be hard. All right, let's go back to the first one here. So if you had 2 L's back then it's just an equation. If one of those L's is in any attendance to get you to R1. Okay, so there's no questioning that. So that should automatically go. If they didn't do it, it goes all the way back then. However, if they should have granted you SMCL for each of those and they did not, that's a different issue. That's probably a Q claim where you got to show the evidence back then showed that you were in need of aid and assistance due to those disabilities at that time. It's got to be clear and convincing evidence. You can't submit any more evidence. It's a super hard bar to jump over. It's not impossible, but the maximizing benefits applies where you actually already have the ratings or you have the SMCs. So here it's a little trickier, and I know that sounds different from what I was saying, but it's more nuanced in that the ratings that you should have been receiving, you were not. Okay, so make sure you're going forward with this. I like your claims for migraines and your PTSD to get you SMCL. You don't have to have 100% for migraines to get SMCL on it. So don't worry about the extra scheduler nonsense there, because that's going to take 4 to 5 years. You just need to show that due to your migraines, you are unsafe, is what you're telling me. And I think you need to follow through on that. Good luck to you. The Veterans Aid. Do you offer assistance for caregivers who are trying to get/appeal denial for benefits, especially if, as the case here, the veteran is represented by a different attorney? Not if you're represented by a different attorney. We do all or nothing. Different attorney could definitely feel like we're infringing upon their representation and sue us. So we just don't even get into that. But if your other attorney is representing you for something that causes the need of another, and frankly, they should be hopefully applying for SMCL aid and attendance if that's the case. I find that if I'm representing a vet for aid and attendance because something makes it to where they need regular aid, help from another person, I'm applying for caregivers. Now, caregivers has been just a dumpster fire. The way that they are adjudicating these things, it goes to the Veterans Health Administration instead of the Veterans Benefits Administration. Frankly, I see them kind of making it up as they go. It's harder because it's murkier, but if you're entitled to that, and frankly, that really helps getting somebody there to help you, you need to push for that. Dwayne, have 100% P&T. Can I get SMC for my myocardial infarction that can be service-connected disability that's in 100% or maybe rated lower than 60? Could that be possible? Okay. I would need to know what the 100% P&T is. If that's for one disability that's not the heart and your heart's at 60%, then yes, you're entitled to SMCS. The 100% is a combined rating of multiple different unrelated issues, then no, you're not. You need to have one rating, one disability that's either 100% or IU. And then you take your other ratings, and if they combine to 60% or more, then you get the SMCS. T. Sween, will this administration be able to take away from veterans disability pay? I know there's a lot of fear mongering. The way they would do that, and honestly, an area I'm concerned about is them issuing new diagnostic codes for different disabilities and making it harder for vets to not only get benefits, but looking to reduce benefits. I mean, we've all been watching this big, beautiful bill being passed. It's going to add a tremendous amount of money to our deficit. So the administration is still actively looking for ways it can save more money. This is a concern of mine. I haven't seen anything coming down the pike so far on this. I'd heard rumors when the administration first came in that they might look to do more adjustments to the diagnostic codes, but I haven't seen that. But that's the way I would see them do that. There's currently no legislation pending looking to take away benefits from veterans. So the other thing is, if you've got a case pending, they're talking about slashing 80,000 jobs at the VA. That frightens me. That's going to cause delays. I don't care what they say. That's a big number. And the way I look at it, even if they're not great adjudicators, they're uninformed. And frankly, from what I'm seeing here, they're less informed than most of you guys. I still want them there because they're moving the case forward. Okay. I just want decisions, because if the decision's good, decision's bad, I get the next play, and then am I appealing it, and where am I appealing it? So that's the one bad thing I see, and that is happening, is that their reduction in force is massive. Brian, OSA claim denied in 2022. In 2023, I was awarded PTSD and GERD. What should I be sending with my supplemental claim? Is a personal statement enough? I take it we're trying to get this secondary, the OSA now, to the PTSD and GERD. You know, if you got a doc who's willing to go to bat for you, say that the sleep apnea is caused by one or the other or both of those, then yeah, let's get that in there. If you don't, I think you need to say, yeah, personal statement, basically saying, look, I wasn't really dealing with this before these symptoms of GERD, these symptoms of PTSD came along, and they've either caused it or they've aggravated it. If you have a spouse who can speak to how bad the snoring is, and if that or problems you're having sleeping, and if that started after you had the symptoms of GERD and PTSD, I think that would be strong as well. It just depends on what you have access to. I mean, if we're going with personal statement, what we're trying to do is trigger a C&P exam. If you have all that other evidence, need a medical opinion. And if you have that, then what we're trying to do is get you the benefits right off the bat without them sending you to another exam. Michael, rated at 90%, 60 for back and legs, 70 for mental health, 10 for tinnitus. Wanting to file IU and claim my sleep apnea to get 100%. Do you have a phone number I can call to get information and how much it would cost? Oh man, I don't know our phone number. I'm sorry. That makes me look like an idiot. I know. Nate, would you put up the phone number for our intake? As far as how much it costs, we only charge if we win. If we win, we charge 30% of your back due benefits. So you'd get, benefits. Let's say you got $10,000. And once you get that, you cut us a check for 30% of that, which would be $3,000. There's people like VSOs who do this for free. There's other attorneys who do it for just 20%. There's other attorneys who do it for more than 30. You just need to look at it and figure out whom you feel most comfortable with your claim, who's going to get you the benefits you deserve. Let's go back real quick to the first part of this. Whatever you do, if you work with us, you work with somebody else, what I'm looking to do here, I don't know that I want 100% combined here. Because if your back and legs by themselves or your PTSD by itself causes unemployability, I want to file for that. And then I want to use the rest of the benefits to get you up to that next level, SMCS, which is another, $300, $400 a month, which you'd be entitled to. Okay, so make sure when you file this, you're not going for 100% itself if one of these, the back, legs, or the mental health causes you to not be able to work. So just make sure that that's filed correctly. Benji just gave me the number. It is 877-683-3983. And I take it, fellows, you're going to put that up on the chat so everybody can see that too. But that's the number for our intake. I think they're open it opens at 8 tomorrow, but probably closed on Friday. Mama Toast, you guys rock. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Holin, 103. Hey, Matt. Thanks for all the info you guys put out there. How often do you see positive results when arguing 38 CFR 3.156B for pending claims? I found a few things while reviewing my C file that seemed to indicate I reopened claims by receiving care at the VA Medical Center for conditions that were denied for lack of diagnosis, which I received during the appeal period, or underrated, which was also refuted by the records in the appeal period. This is a legacy claim. The evidence is clear, but how are my odds? Thanks. Okay, again, first of all, you guys rock. This is amazing. This reg, frankly, used to be our bread and butter. And the reg simply states, and it's 38 CFR 3.156B, that if you, well, not you, I mean, if there is new evidence produced during the appeal period after a decision, and that evidence is relevant to the decision made, the VA, that triggers a subsequent decision. The VA must make a subsequent decision on that. If they don't, that's a pending claim. So the law is in your favor here, okay? So we win these cases all the time. You know, again, just like the 38 CFR 3.157, they got rid of that. They also got rid of this because the VA as a rule screwed this up. They never got it right. The way you find out about this is what you did. Again, kudos to you. You got to dig through the C file. I mean, when we get files, we are arm deep in these things, okay? We're looking to see what was submitted when, what the VA did review as evidence, what they didn't. And so you have done a great job looking at that, finding it sounds like at least two different claims, two different pending claims from evidence here. Again, it's a legacy claim, so you're in luck here. Anybody who's filing now under the AMA and the evidence was submitted, this situation is taking place post, I think it's February 19, but it might be all the way to 20. Unfortunately, this reg no longer helps you. It's just claims that were in the legacy system. Again, good on you. Love it. Tackle box. Need a lawyer to help me get in attendance. You know, give us a call. Again, that number, Benji, make sure you please put that number up on the live feed as well. I don't have access to that. Oh, here we go. Boom. There's the number right there. It's a different number than what I had. I think we have a few numbers, but that's the number right there. So do call that if you need help. You know, again, guys, we probably accept only about 6% of the folks that call, and that doesn't reflect on whether you have a valid claim or not. That just reflects on what our capacity is to take new cases at the time. I've got 6 great teams of attorneys and case advocates and claims managers who do a wonderful job, but we have to restrict the number of cases we take to give the quality of care and attention to the cases we have. You know, our vets are paying us to help them, and I believe quality control is important to me to make sure our vets are actually getting help that they're paying for. So call that number. You know, again, I don't know what our capacity looks like right now. They have a better feel for that than I do. I'd love to help if we can. All right, guys, let's take 3 more here. Veterans Aid. One last thing. If a military spouse ended up getting an illness they suspected came from mold at Camp Lejeune, what kind of attorney would they need? The goal would be to seek relief from medical bills. This is a claim under, you know, there's no claim in the VA for this. There would be a claim under the Camp Lejeune Relief Act, but unfortunately the time to have filed that, I believe, is already gone. Levin Papantonio is a mass torts claim that deals with those. I don't know that you could file a claim under that anymore, unfortunately. Bonos, will C&P diagnose PTSD? Yes, if they find the symptoms. Frankly, they're supposed to do this even if you come in with a diagnosis of PTSD. They're supposed to run through making sure you meet all the criteria for the diagnostic code. Platoon Daddy, why is VA disability in a legal definition not the same as disability such as SSDI? It seems the VA disability is more of compensations just for injuries or damage and not the ability to work or not. Or sorry, maybe that was it. Not the ability to work or not. Okay. First of all, 2 completely different codes, statutes in the federal system. Okay, so that's the biggest thing, right? They're being reviewed differently because the laws for each are different. Now, as far as the ability to work, obviously that's the beginning and the end for Social Security disability. That's all they want to know, right? Can you work? Can you not? If you can work, you're not getting it. If you can't work and you qualify in the system, then you get it. For VA disability, it's more multi-step. First of all, you got to show that it's related to service, right? Once you've shown it's related to service, you're service connected, then we're talking about the rating. And the rating is based on how that disability impedes your ability to work, okay? You know, we got the healthy, 100% healthy person, whatever that's called, paradigm is what they work off. And if, you know, you look to see what reduction in ability to work does that disability cause. And in theory, that's what the diagnostic codes show. You know, how much has this kept you from working? What is, you know, the applicable percentage here? So it is related to your ability to work. It's just more nuanced and not straightforward as a Social Security system. All right, folks, that's what we have for today. Again, great review overall. Man, this is the hardest one I've had yet as far as my picks. I don't even know it's a tie because there's so many great ones, but I'm gonna have to go with Ann Thompson. She was the one who had just an amazing laser insight into her husband's claim as far as getting all that evidence together, submitting it, understanding what should have happened versus what did happen, all thorough medical opinion. I love it. The VA comes along and screws up an easy, straightforward presumptive case and says, no, it's not directly service connected. And she's going to take it to the, hopefully to either the, higher level review or the board and just not take no for an answer. Again, guys, you're entitled to these benefits because you served us. If you read the law, it is very veteran friendly. You guys go through the system and the system is not veteran friendly. So it's incumbent on you guys to understand your claim, understand your medical condition, and understand how the process works. Again, and again, I see here from the questions you're asking, from the setups you're giving me, you guys are doing that. And that's what's gonna lead you to get the benefits you deserve, both the service connection and the rating. Remember, at the end of the day, we don't really, once we have service connection, we don't care about that as much as getting the compensation you deserve. So love seeing this. Again, happy 4th. Please stay safe out there. And know that you're appreciated. You're in our hearts. Thanking you guys for all you've done. And again, on the 4th, 12 or 12:30, Nate will correct me. Hopefully, we're releasing that documentary he's done on Fort McClellan. So excited to see out there. We're looking for feedback on it. Is there other stuff we should have covered? Is there any questions on it? Hopefully that leads to more dialogue here. And another thing we'd love is thoughts on any other issues we should cover in subsequent documentaries. We kind of just fell into this because we realized nobody's talking about it enough. And if there are other issues out there that there's a lot of information on but nobody's talking about, we'd love to consider that and see if we have a budget to do that as well. All right, guys, take care. Till next time.